It was an empire built on blood and gold, a civilization of the bloodthirsty and brutal, knowing only sacrifice and war. That is the classic, brutal image history has painted of the Aztecs. A gruesome picture meticulously recorded by their Spanish conquerors. But what if that entire narrative was constructed to hide a truth? A truth far more complex, advanced, and astonishing. Truth 1. The city more advanced than Europe. Tenochtitlan was no jungle settlement. It was a flawless metropolis with a complex system of sewage, dikes, and aqueducts far superior to any European city of its time. Their grand masterpiece, Chinampa, the artificial floating islands. An ecological farming system that fed an entire empire with unmatched efficiency. Today, archaeologists are using LiDAR technology to scan deep beneath Mexico City, and what they are finding changes everything. Truth 2. Trade was more powerful than war. Aztecs were not just warriors, they were shrewd merchants, whose immense Tlatelolco market was the economic heart of all Mesoamerica. New research into their supply chains reveals the Pochteca merchant class wielded power nearly equal to the nobility. They were spies, diplomats, and the empire's true engine. They traded using cacao beans as currency, a financial system not based on metal coins, but on the intrinsic value of an essential commodity. Truth 3. Science and medicine. While medieval Europe was still relying on bloodletting, Aztecs were performing sophisticated surgeries, including trepanation, skull surgery, with astonishing success rates. They possessed a profound knowledge of herbal medicine. Modern chemical analysis has proven the efficacy of hundreds of plants they used for pain relief and antisepsis. Aztec astronomers held a calendar more accurate than the Julian calendar used in Spain. They could predict eclipses and astronomical cycles with precision. Truth 4. The role of women. History wrote that Aztec women stayed at home, but DNA analysis from recent burial sites tells a very different story. They were not merely homemakers. Aztec women served as priests, master weavers, potters, and even powerful land administrators. Women's property rights were protected. They could inherit land and engage in business entirely independently. The greatest conflict, human sacrifice. The issue of human sacrifice. Yes, it occurred, but was the scale grossly exaggerated by the conquerors to justify their invasion? Modern historians suggest the numbers were inflated by a factor of 10 to 20. Sacrifice was ritualistic and political, not a daily massacre. Chemical evidence from ancient dental analysis shows the Aztec diet was overwhelmingly plant-based, not the high-protein diet of human meat claimed by the Spanish. So, if they were so advanced and powerful, what truly destroyed the Aztec Empire in less than 2 years? Truth 5. The plagues destroyed the empire. It was not the guns or the horses. The real destroyer was something invisible. Smallpox. The Aztecs had no immunity. An estimated 90% of the native population died from successive waves of European diseases. Hernán Cortés was not fighting a full-strength empire, but a civilization already crippled and decimated by disease. Historians used AI models and ancient climate data to confirm. At the same time the plagues hit, the region was also enduring a massive, sustained drought. The perfect storm of disease, drought, and internal division is the true reason for the collapse, not the military superiority of the Spanish. Blaming the savagery of the Aztecs entirely allowed the conquerors to easily justify their crimes, the looting and systematic destruction of history. Act 3. The Modern Portrait. Opening. Today, thanks to genetic technology and modern archaeology, we can finally hear the true voices of the Aztec people. DNA analysis shows ancient Aztecs possessed a highly diverse genetic makeup, suggesting an open and highly receptive society. We are gradually re-evaluating everything, from their architecture to their agriculture to their philosophy of life. They were a great civilization overshadowed by history. The true face of the Aztec is not just one of sacrifice. They were astronomers, hydraulic engineers, master artisans, and philosophers. Reconstructing history is not just correcting a mistake. It is a lesson in the complex, multi-layered nature of any civilization. And that is science. Returning to Aztec science and medicine, they were not just practitioners, they were true scientists. For example, they understood the importance of clean wounds. They used many natural disinfectants to prevent infection. Today, microbiologists are studying these compounds. Many show more effective antibacterial properties than some older antibiotics. Significantly, they also use natural pain relievers and anesthetics extracted from plants, enabling complex surgical procedures. Subsegment: Astronomy and Time. The Aztecs ran their empire by an incredibly precise timekeeping machine, their calendar. They had two overlapping calendar systems, the 260-day ritual calendar and the 365-day civil calendar. Researchers use AI algorithms to compare this calendar system with modern systems and find the deviation to be incredibly small. This demonstrates a level of serious and precise astronomical observation far beyond mere religious rituals. They calculated the cycle of Venus with an error margin of just a few seconds per year, vital information for both agriculture and warfare. Subsegment: The religious power of women. Returning to the role of women. In the realm of religion, they held undeniable power. They served as Cihuatl priestesses and managed important temples dedicated to goddesses. They didn't just assist, they oversaw rituals, delivered prophecies, and had a direct influence on the political decisions of the nobility. This stands in complete contrast to Spanish society, where women's religious power was much more strictly limited. Subsegment: Legal evidence. Codex revelations. Ancient Aztec texts, codices, are indisputable legal proof. Analysis of the pictographic writing has revealed civil lawsuits. Women stood up to sue husbands, sue neighbors, and won their cases. Their legal system, though rigid, guaranteed women the right to divorce, the right to inheritance, and control over their property. This was a civilization that balanced the harshness of warfare with advanced civil law. Expanded segment on human sacrifice, Claim 5. The issue of human sacrifice. We need to understand the context. For them, it was a religious and ecological duty. Studies of Aztec mythology show they believed the gods needed to be fed with blood, Chalchihuatl, to keep the sun rising. But there was a form of sacrifice less often mentioned: self-sacrifice. Most of the blood spilled came from self-inflicted wounds, from offering valuable items, not solely from the dead. Forensic anthropology. Forensic anthropologists have carefully examined remains from mass burial pits. Carbon dating analysis suggests that many skeletons presumed to be sacrifice victims actually died from natural causes or disease beforehand. The Tzompantli skull rack near Templo Mayor. Mostly men, but also women and children. Nearly half were captives taken from rival tribes. This reinforces the view. Sacrifice was a political tool intended to terrorize opposing tribes, not a random act. Truth 6. The True Destroyer. The destruction did not come from within, it came from the ocean in microscopic form. We talked about smallpox, but recent science has pointed to another biological weapon: swine flu or typhoid fever. In 1545, 20 years after the conquest, a plague called Cocolistli wiped out 15 million Aztecs. Subsegment 6A, Epidemiological History. Epidemiological historians used ancient DNA, aDNA technology to analyze the remains. In 2018, they successfully identified the DNA of the Salmonella enterica bacterium, typhoid fever, in the bones. This is definitive proof. European infectious disease, not military might, was the main cause of the collapse. Subsegment 6B, the role of climate. And that is not all. Climate played a devastating role. Analysis of tree rings and ice cores shows the region experienced a mega drought unseen in hundreds of years. In 1520, when smallpox arrived, Tenochtitlan was already struggling with crop failure and famine. They were weakened before the fight. The collapse of a great civilization was the result of a combination: virus, climate, and a small Spanish army. Cultural aspect. After the victory, the Spanish carried out a cultural genocide. They believed destroying these texts was a way to eliminate paganism and replace it with Christianity. Only a few codices survived, like the Codex Mendoza, and these are telling the real story. Truth 7. The Nahuatl language lives. However, Aztec culture did not completely disappear. Their language, Nahuatl, is still spoken by 1.5 million Mexicans. English words like chocolate, tomato, and chili are all originate from Nahuatl. Their influence remains in everyday life. Subsegment 7B, Chinampa Modern. Their agricultural wisdom is also being revived. Agricultural engineers are relearning Chinampa techniques to create a sustainable, efficient farming system for the future. It requires less pesticide, less water, and is extremely productive. A 500-year-old solution to modern food security problems. Affirming status. If there were no historical bias, the Aztecs would be considered a civilization on par with Rome or Egypt. They were defined by their worst act, and their history was written by the victors. But thanks to technology, we can separate fact from myth, honoring complexity instead of simplification. The empire fell, but the spirit, the intellect, and the complexity of the Aztec people remain, waiting to be deciphered. And that is why everything you thought about the Aztecs is wrong, and that is only the beginning of the science. Schools were divided by social class, but ensured every citizen was literate and knew the history of the empire. Boys learned about war and public service. Girls learned about religion, history, and families featured community management. Schools were divided by social class, but ensured every citizen was literate and knew the history of the empire. This was a civilization that prioritized knowledge and learning, not an image of savage warmongers. Subsegment: Warfare Ethics and Limited Rules. Contrary to belief, Aztec warfare had rules. They called it the Flower War. The goal was not destruction, but capturing prisoners for sacrifice and training skills. They limited these wars to certain times and specific areas. However, this also causes controversy. The Flower War was still war, but it shows clear political control. Subsegment: The slavery difference. Aztec servitude was completely different from European African slavery. Servants, tlacotli, were simply people selling themselves due to debt or punishment. They could still own property and even servants of their own. Servants could buy their freedom back. Their children were born free, and the sale of servants was a complex process. When the Spanish arrived, they were astonished by the relative humanity of the Aztec system of servitude. Economic expansion. Market sophistication. The Tlatelolco market was more than a place for trade. It was a highly regulated system. There were market judges and police to ensure fairness, quality of goods, and handle litigation. Their cacao currency system created a stable economic network that did not require precious metals. Modern economic modeling suggests this system had natural anti-inflation properties. Subsurface archaeology, latest discoveries. Archaeologists are still searching. Under Mexico City, a new treasure trove has been found. A tunnel leading to the Templo Mayor, filled with untouched offerings. The use of non-invasive tools, GPR, helped locate these sacred areas. These offerings, including thousands of jade, gold, and seashell artifacts, are proof of an extensive trade network. The truth about gunpowder, exaggerated technical advantage. Was Spanish gunpowder truly the deciding factor? Muskets and small cannons of the time were slow, prone to malfunction in humid climates, and often created more noise than casualties. Their true advantage was steel swords and armor. Iron armor resisted Aztec obsidian weapons. The fall of Tenochtitlan was a siege, cut off from water, starving, sick, not an open battle. Cultural conclusion, philosophy and poetry. The Aztecs were not just about war. They had a deep tradition of philosophy and poetry. Their poetry often spoke of the fragility of life, the beauty of nature, and the meaning of death. Many Aztec philosophers debated the meaning of existence, similar to ancient Greek philosophers. Modern legacy, the connection. The Aztec legacy is embedded in modern Mexico. For example, the Mexican flag. The symbol, the eagle on a cactus eating a serpent. That is the place where the Aztecs were prophesied to build Tenochtitlan. They chose an impossible place to build their capital, a testament to engineering and perseverance. The cost of history. What do we lose when we accept the victor's story? We lose sustainable solutions, ancient medical knowledge, and a rich perspective on human nature. Science is not meant to romanticize. Science is meant to make the truth complete. The real history of the Aztecs is a balance between brutality and sophistication. The collapse was not inevitable, but a tragedy caused by the convergence of many ruthless factors. 16-minute summary. 7 forgotten truths. After 16 minutes, we know 7 forgotten truths. 1. Engineering. Tenochtitlan was cleaner than any European city. 2. Economy. They were a complex trading empire, not just warriors. 3. Science. Their medicine and astronomy reached advanced levels. 4. Society. Women had property rights and religious authority. 5. Ethics. Warfare was regulated. Servants had rights. 6. The fall. 90% of the population died from virus and drought, not gunfire. 7. Legacy. The Nahuatl language and Chinampa techniques live on. Call to action. If a great civilization like the Aztec could be so grossly misrepresented, how severely have other great civilizations, the Maya, the Inca, been misunderstood? Science, LiDAR, DNA, and AI are unlocking secrets that historians overlooked 500 years ago. This is the truth about the Aztecs. Greater, more complex, and more tragic than any story you've heard. The mission of ArchaeoX is to tell these stories so that no civilization is overshadowed again. Follow us to continue the journey of decoding the world's greatest archaeological mysteries.